Guys, what is up? I just wanted to quickly let you know that we are now running free nutrition consults at www.thechieflife.com. You can book in for a quick 15-minute consult where we get to talk about all things nutrition, all things lifestyle with one of our fantastic nutrition coaches. So if that is something that you feel you are in need of, please jump across to www.thechieflife.com. Can't wait to see you guys booking in. Chiefers, this podcast is powered by Athena. Athena exists to give back life to entrepreneurs. Now, Athena is actually a virtual assistant company. So what they do is they set you up with your own virtual assistant, and you can then palm off any recurring work, any recurring jobs that you do week in, week out, to help give back yourself some hours and to help focus on the things you want to focus on. Now, I set up with Athena probably about 4 weeks ago, and I'm freaking loving it, to be honest. It really has given back to me in my life, but more so, it's freed me up to do the things that I really want to be focusing on, to be working on the business and not in the business. You might be seeing a few new things coming out from the Chief Life at the moment, and it all is due to the VA that we've been set up with from Athena. So our VA, Lewis, is an absolute dude. He lives in Colombia, and I talk with him regularly. His English is really, really good. He said to me at the start, hey, I'd prefer not to do typing. I'd prefer to do video work and editing and podcast work as much as possible. But that is what I asked for on a VA. And the cool thing was that when I went to Athena, I said, hey, I want to get someone to help me out with the podcast and all of our video editing. And they said, okay, give us a few days. We will go and find someone for you that is perfect for the job. You can interview him to make sure that he is perfect for the job, and then we can go from there. And it was literally, they solved it within 2 days. They set me up with this interview. I went and had my interview with Lewis, and they literally nailed it with the person that they'd selected. We get along really well. He does the job perfectly. And straight away, he was in the business working for us and getting to work straight away, which is absolutely incredible because, like I said, it gave me the free time to start to work on the things that I want to be working on. And I don't know about you, but depending on what you do for work, most people have things that they do exactly the same every single week. And this was my case. I had multiple things that I was doing, in particular around the podcast, around video editing, around the YouTube channel, and bits and pieces that I am not well skilled in, but I was sinking and learning to swim. And I guess the great thing about Athena and having now Lewis on our team, our VA on our team, is that he's come in with a host of different skills, and he's just really picked it up and put floaties on me and shown me how to swim really quickly without me actually having to do a whole heap of work. I literally jump in and we have our call. I say, hey, Lewis, these are the things I want you to be doing this week. I upload some stuff for him, and he goes and creates that profile and creates those bits and pieces for me, which is absolutely insane. Not only that, but he's also got great initiative. Now, this is obviously going to be person-to-person dependent and based on what you're giving them as a role, but he loves video editing and he loves doing the podcast upload. So he's been incredible with finding snippets without me having to say, hey, I want you to go to this exact minute. He just goes and he just does it, which is incredible. The video content that I've been sending across, I'm just saying, hey, I just want this cut down to a minute, make it look great, make it look really appealing, make it compelling, and he goes ahead and does the job, which is absolutely crazy. VAs are really good for anything that is recurring, realistically. So if you have email inbox that you just want to get cleared day by day, and you only want to see the important things, then that's something a VA can do for you. If you are having to take notes every single week, if you're having to write a blog every single week, if you are having to do research every single week, and it's something that you do literally day in, day out, or every other week that needs to be done, and it can be palmed off, this is something that is really great because we're realistically paying the company a really fair wage, and it's really saved me a lot of time. And we've got this VA absolutely fighting for us, and he loves doing the work that he's doing, which is really cool because Athena put in the work to go and find someone who is so relevant to us. So if you would like to look a little bit more into the VA service with Athena, you can go to athena.co. And if you use the code CHIEF, which is CHIEF, all in capitals, you'll get 20 hours free VA work, which is freaking incredible. That's saving you guys a big pay packet straight away. Imagine if someone could come in this week and say, hey, I'm going to do 20 hours for free for you this week. That's all you have to do. Go to athena.co. Use the code CHIEF and you'll get 20 hours free with these guys. But believe me, if you have recurring jobs that you're doing every single week, this is so worthwhile. I feel like a new man just because I've got so much extra time to focus on the things I want to focus on. So guys, even if this sounds interesting to you and don't really know what it's all about or what a virtual assistant's about, please reach out to me. Hit me up, Maddie@thechieflife.com. For an email, or you can hit me up on socials at Maddie After. I'm really happy to talk about this. I'm very passionate about it because it was something that I knew that we needed for a long time, and Athena came along and literally just saved it for us. It was like I had put it on my list to find a VA to do the podcast on that day. And then I had a call from Drew, my mate who owns Athena. And he's like, hey, mate, I want to talk to you about getting you set up with a podcast, with the VA to help you out with your podcast. I was like, are you freaking serious? But yeah, that was just what our instance was. And I really do appreciate the work that Athena do. It's been a really smooth process. There has been a bit of work involved with training them up, which is completely necessary because you want them to be doing your product and your I guess putting out your best work. And so realistically, there has been a little bit of training, but I think that is only necessary for bringing anyone onto the team. So guys, if you do want to hear from me, please reach out. If not, head across to athena.co and you can use the code CHIEF, all in capitals, for 20 hours free VA work. Get on it today. Welcome to the Chief Life Podcast,
where we deliver guests and knowledge from around the world right to your ears.
Focusing on nutrition, exercise, health, and wellness.
So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Welcome back to the Chief Life Podcast. I'm Stacey Lee Turner, and today I am joined by Nikii Syme for the second time on the podcast.
Yeah,
welcome back.
Thanks for having me again.
And we're pretty excited today to, I guess, discuss something that's quite close to both of our hearts, but maybe also quite a controversial and perhaps taboo subject that doesn't get spoken about enough. Mm-hmm. We're talking today about miscarriage.
Yes.
So the reason, do you want to touch on why you wanted to talk about it, and then I can share my reasons as well?
Yeah, for sure. So recently I experienced a miscarriage at 11 weeks, and I really noticed that the way that I processed it was completely abnormal to the way that most people process it. And I actually entered into a group on Facebook where it was all about miscarriage support. And there was a woman in there who was still really suffering 2 years on since their miscarriage. And it really struck a chord for me in that I don't know that we really are necessarily taught how to process emotions in a really healthy way. So for me, I processed it in 4 days, and honestly processed it in 4 days. Yeah. And to see these women in so much suffering still really broke my heart. So it really made me want to just challenge this a little bit and have this conversation about it doesn't have to be that you continue to suffer after an experience that does hurt you and can break you and crack you open. You also get to allow the light to come back in. So yeah, I'm excited to kind of talk about this and share this. And it could possibly be, ruffle some feathers, and I'm okay with that too. I'm excited. Let's do it.
Definitely. And so, we both had very different experiences. I also experienced a miscarriage last year before the successful full term of pickle here. But I think no matter when you experience a miscarriage, it's always going to have some kind of impact on your life, on you as a person, and it's how you choose to interpret that message or that lesson or that, I guess, even gift. And again, probably going to rustle some feathers here, but that opportunity to go through adversity, to go through a challenge, and how you choose to come out the other side of that.
Absolutely. And that gift, it can actually be a gift. And it's all about perspective, right? And this is something that I get to play with all the time, is that when shitty things happen, right? They really do. And it's part of life. But we get to decide and we get to choose how we move through that, how we process that, and how long we choose to stay in that pain and that suffering. And this is probably going to ruffle feathers too, is that our suffering is a choice. You know, emotion, I'm pretty sure like a certain emotion only stays in your body for about 36 hours and then it's released. And then any suffering after that, you're actually creating yourself and choosing. And when I learned that, I was like, holy crap, okay, so I'm actually choosing to be in pain more than I actually need to be. But it seems so real, you know, you seem so stuck in it. And just to kind of have that realization and then get to kind of implement that in my experience was amazing. Probably one of the most amazing experiences of my life to be able to see myself move through something that painful, that beautifully and that peacefully and that I don't even know the words. It was just such a beautiful experience and such a gift.
Definitely. I've not heard that before around the 36 hours, but my science brain is going, so physiologically, I guess the hormones would release and be out of your system.
Yeah.
But then if you choose to relive it, that would be what would keep perpetuating that response.
And that's it. It's the thoughts. So, you know, and it's like, it's in the past. When people say it's in the past, it's like, yeah, it is in the past. It's happened. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
And the only thing that is continuing to keep you in that pain is the thought that you're having about it. You're reliving it. And that's a choice. You get to choose to relive it.
Yeah.
And you also get to choose not to relive it and to focus and moving forward and keep going in the direction that you actually want to go in. And this is where I think a lot of people are stuck in that they don't realize the power that they actually have to create such an intentional life through the power of their thoughts.
Absolutely. And so I guess one of the reasons that I wanted to talk about it is because it can block, you know, if people aren't working through it, it can block them from achieving what they're looking to achieve, which is to have a successful pregnancy. If people get stuck, and, you know, everyone's going to have their own journey, everyone's going to go through it at their own pace. You know, we're not saying that what Nikii experienced is what everybody will experience, the way that you so beautifully, you know, went through that process in such a short amount of time. And that doesn't mean that it's never going to upset you again. You'll have those moments where you remember and then you move through that again. Everyone's going to go through it at their own pace, but that doesn't mean that you have to continue it on for a long time because, and this is the way that I kind of perceive it, people are almost cock-blocking themselves from falling pregnant again or having a successful pregnancy because they're holding on to the fear that they might not have a successful pregnancy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's kind of why I want to bring it to people's attention and it is a taboo subject. It doesn't get spoken about enough, but it happens, you know, if we bring out stats, it's I've heard a few stats get thrown around, but the one that really stays with me is probably 1 in 2 women experience a miscarriage at some point. And I definitely believe that that's become more prevalent now in the kind of more toxic world that we live in with all the plastics and the, you know, toxins that are in the food that we eat, the way that we live and all that sort of stuff. So there's definitely things that we can do to help decrease our risk of miscarriage, but then we can't blame ourselves when it happens because it is so common.
And that's the thing, like there's no actual scientific proof or, you know, research to show why it happens, you know, and it could be that, absolutely. And it could just be Mother Nature's way of, what's that, when they kind of are filtering out this, what's the word?
You're asking the pregnant woman with baby brain.
Natural selection.
Survival of the fittest, yes.
But, you know,
the Darwinian theory.
And I believe that every soul that makes it to this earth is meant to be here. And I also believe through my miscarriage experience is that little soul, what was going on, and it's a more spiritual belief, but what was going on in my life at the time, that little soul was like, fuck no, I'm not coming into that shit. You guys need to sort your shit out and then I'll come back. And that's what I truly believe.
Yeah. Because you'd set the intention. You both wanted to bring another baby into the world, but you were feeling like, you know, once that pregnancy began, I mean, maybe it's better if you tell the story, but then, yeah, as you say, things weren't quite right for baby to arrive. And so that's why.
Yeah, well, even when we decided, there was still a little bit of hesitation for me. I'm like, okay, cool, yep, let's just do it. Let's just get it done. And I'm like, that's not really the way I want to be feeling about, you know, bringing a baby into the world, especially when this is the first one that we've actually really choosing to create.
Yeah,
like my
the
other
others
two
were happy accidents.
Yeah, they were beautiful accidents. But yeah, I just know, like, you know, my relationship wasn't the best that it could be at that time. And when baby's heartbeat stopped was actually at the same time that Gary and I had a really huge fight, probably one of the biggest fights we've ever had. So I am a firm believer that, you know, that little being was just like, I want to be here, guys. I'm ready to be here, but you guys need to be ready for me.
Yeah.
And that's the gift in this for me.
Yeah.
So a little bit like, are you cool if I just like tell my actual miscarriage
Please.
story?
Yeah, yes, go ahead.
So we obviously were trying. I had a chemical pregnancy a couple of months before. So for those of you listening who don't know what a chemical pregnancy is, probably, like, I would imagine a lot of women have had these and not actually realized it's when you actually fall pregnant, but you lose it around the same time that you
Get your period.
So a lot of people will probably just think it's their period, whereas for me, I'd done a test and then the next day I bled. So
and
I
it's
had
more intense pain
bleeding
as well.
Yeah, it's just like a really heavy flow and you're like, oh God, what's going on? But then we fell pregnant a couple of months later again and all was going well. And I remember when we went in for the first scan and I had the fear. You know, I had like, oh my God, I've had a chemical already. It's taking us a little bit longer than expected to get pregnant, and I had the fear. And my body I just kind of knew that something wasn't quite right. We had our first scan, and I remember the sonographer saying, "Oh, okay, yep, there's a heartbeat. It's not quite strong, not as strong as we would hope it to be, but you know, it's still early days." And I knew in that moment that there was something not quite right, but I didn't say anything because I didn't want to believe it, right? So then we were leaving the doctors actually, and Gary turned around to me and said, "Oh, so you know, if something happens with this one, will we try again?" And I was like, "Why would you even say
Don't
that?
put that out there.
You've never said anything like that before." And that obviously like triggered me again. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then the whole kind of 3 months, I was just desperate to get to that 12-week mark to feel
zone.
safe.
Yeah.
Which isn't even the case. Like since all this has happened, I've realized it's not even the case.
Yeah, people unfortunately sometimes lose them at 20 weeks or more.
Exactly. Yeah, but it's not called miscarriage so much then. It's called, you know,
stillbirth.
So anyway, everything continued. And as far as I knew, I still had all my symptoms, and then my symptoms started diminishing. And I'm like, oh, amazing. We're getting into that, you know, that 3-month period, that 12-week period. I'm going to start feeling better again. And then I went to bed one night at around 11 weeks and I was lying there and I was like, oh, that feels a bit funny. It felt like a little bit of period pain. I'm like, oh, that doesn't feel quite right. Maybe I'm just lying funny. Anyway, I went to the toilet and when I stood up, I wiped and there was blood. And instantly I was like, this isn't good. Like I knew. And Gary was like, it's cool. You know, Gary's my partner, by the way. He's like, it's cool. You know, these things happen. There's usually some bleeding and stuff.
Trying to keep you calm.
Yeah. And I'm like, dude, it's too late. I'm gone. Like, I know what's happening. And you know, like I knew that.
Your intuition. Yeah.
What was happening. So the next day, obviously, I went to the doctor and I have to tell the story. Actually, it was so beautiful and it just really reminded me of human nature. I was sitting in the doctor's by myself. I was bawling my eyes out, like terrified because this is the first time I'd ever experienced anything like this, just waiting. And I'm like, all that's going through my head is I think I'm losing my baby. And in my mind, I'm 11 weeks, you know, so it's a full fetus. And I'm sitting there and I'm bawling my eyes out. And next thing, this beautiful man walks over with a box of tissues and he's like, do you need a hug? And I was like, yes, I need a hug. And he gave me the most amazing hug. I'll be forever grateful to that guy because he literally saw me at a time where I was in the most pain in my life. And he just came. He just knew exactly what to do. And he's like, is everything okay? Do you want to talk about it? And I said, I think I'm losing my baby. And all he said to me was, just remember God's got a plan.
Oh my God, I'm going to cry.
I've got goosebumps, yeah. And then...
Who was this man? Did he work there?
No, just he was there waiting for the doctor.
Wow.
And I was just like, oh. And then in that exact moment when he said that, the doctor called my name and I was like, thank you so much. Like, you have no idea what that meant to me. But then after seeing the doctor, obviously I was waiting for this, the sonograph and the ultrasound, sorry. And the same thing happened. I'm sitting there bawling my eyes out, and this other beautiful man comes over and is like, "Are you okay? Can I get you anything? Can I fill your water?" And I'm like, "Oh my God.
Who are these angels?
Who are these beautiful men?" And in that moment, I was like, "I need my girlfriend." Like, I had to call. Gary was at work, and I could call my girlfriend. I'm like, "Can you please come and be with me? I need you." And she came, and that was amazing. But just to be reminded of that, you know, our innate way of being is love, right? And just caring for one another. It was so beautiful.
And also, just before, I wanted to point out to people that even though Nikki used the word God, and
God's whatever you want it to be.
God's whatever you want it to be. Like, this man might have been religious, but that resonates with us on a more spiritual level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
God's not my word. Universe source is my word. You know?
Spirit, source,
Whatever you believe.
Yeah.
So that was really, really beautiful, and a real, like, that was the light and probably one of my darkest moments.
Yeah.
It was so beautiful. So anyway, I went into the ultrasound and got it confirmed that Bub was had passed. A little heartbeat had stopped at 9 weeks, and I just felt my heart break. Like, I felt the pain. It was horrific, and just burst into tears. And my friend was there at the time. I'm pretty sure the sonographer thought that we were partners because she was like,
Assumptions,
talking,
hey?
yeah, assumptions. But yeah, from there it was like, okay, now I know it's happened. And it was like, okay, so now what do I get to do? How do I get to process this? So I went home. I had to go back to the doctor again, and I literally then had to go through the birthing process. So he said, "Yep, you just got to wait it out. You'll pass it." And is this something we should be talking about with a very hormonal woman, pregnant woman?
No, it's fine.
He said you'll pass it, but you've just got to allow it to take its course. And if nothing's happened by tomorrow, then come back in. And I'm like, okay, cool. So we went home and picked up my babies. Gary got home, and we had some time together, and then we went and picked up my kids, and I just held them so close and was lying in bed, and we were watching TV and stuff, and feeling very emotional. And then that night I got to birth the fetus, which was actually a really healing experience for me. Really painful, really scary. I was by myself, you know, because we didn't know when it was going to happen. So Gary had gone to work, and it was literally 5 minutes before he got home that it happened. But it was like a full labor process.
And your kids were both there,
and both my boys were there.
Yeah.
I had one on each side of me as I was birthing my little fetus into the world. It was a pretty amazing experience. And they just knew innately to hug me and just to be beside me.
And
they were just so beautiful. Yeah, it was so beautiful. It's so funny to say that, this really full-on experience was so beautiful.
So a 4-year-old and he's not...
No, so it was 2 and a 1. 2 and a 1 at the time. Yeah,
wow.
so Phoenix Griffin's just turned 3.
Oh, 3,
Phoenix is
yes.
still 1.
Yeah. They're so little.
Yeah, they're really little, but they just know, right?
Yeah.
And the whole night, usually they're like balls of energy around that time too, and they just knew to just relax and rest and just be with mummy.
Yeah.
So that happened, and then obviously I was like, whoa, what just happened? Gary wasn't there. I was on the phone to my nurse friend. I'm like, is this normal? And she was like, yeah, babe, you've just got to pass it. And I did, and I chose to keep the fetus to be able to, you know, bury it. That was my choice. I was like, because I'd had friends that had, you know, had a miscarriage into a toilet and just flushed it down. I couldn't do that. So the fetus actually dropped into the toilet, and I fished it out and and then kept it safe until I was ready to do something with it. But from that point on, when that happened, I made a commitment. I'm like, that stuff kind of came through. It was like, okay, so now I have a choice on how I'm going to move through this and how I'm going to process this experience. And do I want to remain in suffering for a long extended period of time, or do I want to actually move through this with ease and grace and love? And I chose ease, grace, and love. And I gave myself a time limit. I said, right, you've got until Monday. Gary had a long weekend, so it was perfect timing. So that meant I had Friday. This happened on a Thursday. I had Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday to process. So all that looked like for me was asking myself in any given moment, what do I need right now? I cancelled all of my schedule. Like, I had cancelled all my clients. I said, I'm not working this weekend. And my question every morning was, my soul, you know, what do I need today? And the first day, I think it was, you need to just stay in bed and cry and watch sad movies. And Gary took the kids out, which was amazing. And then they came home and we had cuddles, and he gave me hugs, and it was really beautiful, and I processed. And the next day it was take the kids to the museum. I'm like, okay, that's random, but let's go. And it was really beautiful. And then we walked through South Bank and healed, and it was just lovely. And then Sunday again, it was, I can't remember. I think it was just be with your family. I can't remember. But then I knew that, you know, and there was a lot of crying. And I was allowing myself to really go into the depths of the pain and feel the pain. And I think that's what a lot of people are really scared of.
Yeah.
And by not actually acknowledging it and feeling it, we prolong it, right?
You either bury it or block it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it rears its head at some other point. So it was a really beautiful journey of just going, fuck, this really hurts, and I'm feeling it, and it fucking hurts, and I cried and I screamed and I let myself be held, and I asked for what I needed, and I just trusted the process. But I also was committed to not holding on to it, because I'm like, I get to choose this, and now I get to practice what I preach. It was really awesome. So then we decided, I was like, right, I want to do a little burial ceremony, and this was really perfect because it created a sense of closure. So my partner and I, Gary, we dropped the kids off at their papa's place, and we just went for a drive, and we found a beautiful spot, and we buried our little baby together, or the physical of our baby together, and we cried and we held each other and we just sat in silence, and he was just amazing, so beautiful through the whole process. Like, he had his own stuff going on, but obviously my physical experience was something that he can't ever understand. And for guys, the whole pregnancy thing, right? Like, they don't really get it. They support us and they love us, but they just won't ever understand what it's like.
And that's not us saying it from a place of like, you won't understand. It's like literally you never will, because you don't have to go through it.
Exactly. They can't. They actually physically can't experience it. So he was just amazing. And the other thing was support, actually. I was like, I put a post up and I shared my experience and the support. I was like, I asked him, like, what do I need? And they're like, you need support. You need to put this out there so that you can receive love from people right now, because I'm such a giver. But in that moment, I was like, I need love. I need love from my friends. I need to be feeling supported and held. And it was beautiful. Like, I got so many messages and just from people that I was like, oh, wow, this is incredible. Thank you. Like, I wasn't even expecting. But yeah, so from that, then on the Monday, we did the burial and we processed. And I remember walking away from that, just going, this is done now. This is done now. And now I get to move forward. And it literally was that's the experience I had. And it's not saying that I haven't thought about it since and felt sadness for it, but it's not something that I'm consumed with every day, and I'm not feeling the sadness all the time every day. It hasn't become part of my identity. It's just something that I got to grow through. And the gift from that is that it's created the space for Gary and I to really hone in and focus on us again and get really connected again, because we were so disconnected. And I believe that's why baby didn't come in. And now we have this amazing relationship that's flourishing. And it's just, I just know that was the gift in this whole experience, was to bring him and I back closer together.
Yes.
And it's been, just magic.
So special.
So special.
It's almost like you guys have had the opportunity to heal you two, and then baby's going to come back in. And this is something that you and I spoke about the other day, is that we both believe that the soul is still the same soul.
Yes.
It was just the DNA of that physical body didn't reach full term.
Yeah,
but that doesn't mean that the same soul is not coming back in and waiting in the wings for when the time is right.
Ready. Yeah, absolutely. And it's beautiful because now I feel like we're ready. You know, we're going to start trying when we feel like it's right, and we have those conversations. But the space in which we are right now is love. Like, oh man, I love that man. It's crazy how much I love that man. And that's after going through some really dark shit, you know? Yeah. And that's what I love about relationships too, is that dark stuff just amplifies the love and the light within that space. It's just beautiful. And now we have such a deeper connection, a deeper understanding. We've healed. And even when I said like the birthing process, that was massively healing for me. Like that was another gift that came out of the whole experience. With my 2 labors, I didn't get to birth the way that I wanted to. So to go through that experience, as painful as it was, it really healed that part for me. So I think it's really and I know that not everyone thinks it the way that we do, but it's beautiful to have these conversations and show and just let people know that it can be different.
Yeah,
and it's
question it. Question your current thought process. How could you
Absolutely.
pursue this in a different way?
Yeah, and it's perspective, right? Like, are you looking for the shit or are you looking for the good? What are you focusing on? And
Yeah.
that's what it comes down to. I could have looked at that and gone, poor me, why did this happen to me, blah, blah, blah.
And you could still be holding on to it.
Yeah, and be miserable still and depressed. Or it can be like, okay, so why did this happen for me? What do I get to learn here? How do I get to grow from this?
Yes.
You know?
I definitely believe everything happens for a reason and that there's a silver lining in everything.
Yes.
And I know you share those beliefs. And I know that not everybody does share those beliefs, but I would much rather live my life this way. And I'm not saying that everybody has to, but I definitely encourage them to question why they're living the way they live. And recent conversations with a girlfriend of mine who is living from a place of suffering and doesn't want to anymore actually admitted that she doesn't know what it feels like not to suffer.
Yes.
And she's scared of not suffering.
Yes.
And I feel like that is a lot of people that are around us. Like, they're the people that we want to help, right? So I didn't mention this at the start, but if you've heard Niki's last podcast, so she's a love coach and runs the company Love Unleashed. And, you know, it's all about finding a way to love yourself, to bring more love into your life, into your world, heal yourself first, and then you're able to reflect that and call in more of that to your life. And that is from a place of joy. You can't be suffering when you're loving.
No, absolutely. And I love that you brought that up in that whole scared of not suffering, because there's so many people out there that I believe have that belief of, if I'm happy, I'm going to lose. You know, I can't have it all. Nobody has it all. You know, if I'm happy, then something's going to go wrong. And it's like, it doesn't have to be that way. You are on this planet to experience joy and love. You are birthed into this place, this planet, this life from love. And doing the disservice to yourself and the world by remaining in suffering. And I get it. I've been there. It's like, and I remember when I was probably at the pits before I really dove into my personal development journey, it was like, I know where I want to be and I know what I want to experience, but I have no idea how to actually get there.
Yeah.
And
or if I deserve it.
Yeah, but it felt so far removed from where I was. It was like, how is that even fucking possible?
Yes.
Like, how is it possible
People
to
always say
feel that
believe and
way?
achieve, but, you know.
What the fuck does that even mean? And what does that even feel like?
Yeah.
Because I was so in my suffering and in so much pain for such a long time, 25 years, 30 years, that it was like the opposite of that just felt so far removed from where I was currently at. And it seemed like this massive mountain. And that's where it's just the baby steps that matter, right? It's all those little steps that will get you up that mountain.
Totally.
But it's if you don't start anything, if you don't do anything, then nothing's going to change.
You're going to be stuck there. Yeah. A lot of it comes from a place of fear, right? And that scarcity mindset that there isn't enough to go around for everybody. And so there are a couple of areas that people can look to change and shift. But it is a physiological response in us. If we think back to, because I always like to go like, where is that coming from? Okay, like some of it might be nature and some of it might be nurture. So from a nurture perspective, it's what society is putting on us to believe like, oh no, there's not enough to go around, because that then puts people into this fear that then drives, you know, consumerism and all this sort of stuff. From a nature perspective, back in the caveman days, we were fighting for our lives. It was unsafe. We did have to look over our shoulder to check that a lion wasn't coming to eat our baby. Like, that was a real threat. It's not anymore. Exactly. So now we have to evolve and allow ourselves to know that we don't have to be scared. There is plenty to go around. We are in an abundant world. There's so much love. There's so much food. There's so much of everything.
Yeah.
Then our biggest problem is our phone working today?
Yeah, I know,
right? Like first world problem. So you start to put things in perspective.
You think you're not wealthy? Like, what are you listening to this on? Like, you've got an iPod. You are fucking wealthy, right?
And we're not saying that that's a bad thing.
No, definitely
We're just
not.
saying, can you see the positives in that? Can you acknowledge that you are coming from a very amazing life and start to appreciate that,
An
have
abundant
gratitude.
life.
Yes.
Look around you, nature. Look at nature.
Yeah.
Nature is so freaking abundant.
Yeah.
My biggest thing was, if I'm too happy, I'm going to die.
Do you know where that came from? Was
No
that a belief somebody else put on you? Or?
I have no idea, but I remember thinking, if I'm too happy, then I'm going to die. Something bad's going to happen to me.
Wow.
Interesting, hey? Do you have anything like that?
Mine was more around that and I think I've spoken to you about this before, but that fear of not being able to have kids.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't know if I told you, but I recently figured out where that fear came from.
Oh, no, you didn't. Where?
So I've been working through it in my own way, trying to figure out like just how to get over it because I didn't know where it came from.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I had this epiphany probably a month or two ago where when I was little, probably 5 years old, and I got kicked or punched in the stomach. I was just like wrestling with, did I tell you this?
I think so, yeah.
But I haven't spoken about it on a podcast, so I'm happy to share it because I think it's, you know, when you realize these beliefs are not your own and you need to remove them and let go of them. So, yeah, I got kicked or punched in the belly, just like as kids do. They wrestle, they play, but I passed out. I fainted from the pain or the impact or whatever. And as I'm coming to, I hear one of the adults that was looking after us chastising this other child and saying, you should never kick a girl in the stomach. You can damage their womb and stop them from having children.
Oh, boom.
Planted.
Yeah.
Sponge.
Yeah.
Stuck in my brain.
Anchor that shit in. Anchor
Deep.
in. Yeah.
And I completely forgot about this.
Yeah, wow.
But then every other incident that was anything, any kind of trauma to my belly region reinforced that pattern for me. So, I think when I was 11, we had the opportunity to go to South Africa and visit some of my mum's family. She's from Zimbabwe and a lot of her family live in South Africa.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah,
awesome. And we went to like a horse riding place and they had a donkey and somebody had said, make sure you don't stand behind the horses or the donkeys because they kick. And I saw my cousins and my little sister standing behind this donkey and I went running over to like move them out of the way. Guess who got kicked in the stomach?
You manifested that
shit. So then that reinforced this belief system that I had never even put in my own head. On top of that, some doctors tell you that if you take the morning after pill ever, that it can decrease your risk of being able to have kids later on. So then there was another lie that I got told. You know, growing up that reinforced these negative patterns for me. So I had a lot of like shit that I was carrying that wasn't mine, that wasn't true.
Yeah.
And I'd never realized that these beliefs had been put onto me. And I was working through all this fear and there was that time pressure that I was putting on me and my husband to get pregnant sooner than maybe we were ready because I wanted to check that I actually could.
Ah, interesting.
And so I was driving him crazy, which was then putting me into a stress response, which meant we were never going to be able to fall pregnant. So
no baby wants to come into that space, right?
Exactly. So I started to go through my own healing process, aside from these beliefs that I didn't know were even there, you know, through energy healing and through naturopaths and looking at it from both the spiritual but also the physiological perspectives and healing my body so that it was ready. But then more recently figuring this out, it was like epiphany. And so I guess the reason I share this is because if there's something that you can think back to, like a memory of something that someone has said to you that's reinforcing any kind of fear, like it might not even be related to miscarriage or being able to have a baby. It could be anything that people, that biggest fear that they have. Because my biggest fear when everyone asked me was always that I won't be able to be a mum.
Interesting.
And even then I was always open to adoption, you know, or fostering. So it was weird that I still had this fear that I wouldn't be a mum. It didn't have to be biological. It could have been another way, but I still just had this fear that I wouldn't be able to do it. So yeah, whatever that fear is, if you can figure out if there's beliefs that other people have put onto you, it's a lot easier to let them go when you realise that they're not yours in the first place.
Who's the shit? I want the shit. Get off me.
So I don't remember why I launched into that. Hopefully somebody got something out of it.
Yeah, it's all about babies and all that stuff, so it's all good.
Definitely. So I guess if you're happy for me to talk about my experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was much earlier on and it happened so quickly. So I guess it would be considered a chemical pregnancy, but it was a little bit 5.5 weeks. So
okay,
a little bit
early,
on. Yeah. So like a late period.
Yeah. So you'd done a test though. You knew you were pregnant.
Yeah. So it was the first month that we were officially trying, in inverted commas. Probably too much information, but Maddie and I have been having unprotected sex for many years, but not finishing.
Yeah.
I'll let the listeners read into that what they will.
Just to put it out there, Phoenix was a pre-cum baby. So
okay.
I'll rise there with you,
Thank
sister.
you. But we'd never set the intention together that we were both ready.
Yeah.
And Maddie had finally said, no, I'm ready now. This is like our first month of trying. and we were successful. And so the day that my period was due, I took a pregnancy test and it was positive. Funnily enough, though, I didn't even look at it. So my sister was up that weekend, and I was like, I'm just curious. Like, I'll pee on the stick and then just put it in the drawer. We're running out the door to go see a movie. I'll worry about that later. Didn't think anything of it because I was like, there's no way it's going to happen. So already setting a negative tone.
Yeah.
And then next morning I pulled it out to throw it in the bin, and it had 2 lines. I'm like,
that's awesome.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do. I'm like, do I go tell Maddie? Do I wait a couple of days? Like, what do I do? So I was like, well, he needs to ride this journey with me. So I came running out and I'm like, hey, actually, no, I took another pregnancy test that morning.
Okay.
Because the one I'd taken the day before was an afternoon one, and it was like a faint line.
Yeah.
So the next morning I did another one, like first, like I saw that line and I was like, okay, I'm going to do another one now. And then it was a stronger line. So I was like, okay. So
confirmed.
I went running out to him with these 2 pregnancy tests, like, oh my God. And the first thing he said to me was, let's not get too excited though. We need to wait a few days and like go see the doctor. So we were both preempting this, like, it might not be a real thing. Don't get too excited. Whereas I feel like what we should have been doing was like, yes, this is happening. This is what we wanted. This is what we called in. But we weren't. We were almost both a little hesitant for some reason.
But I believe too that the hesitancy is often because it's setting you up for something.
Yeah,
you
maybe.
know?
It's like which came first, the chicken or the egg?
And it's that whole
knowing.
Yeah, it's just that trusting that, okay, now you get that, that's where hindsight's beautiful, right?
Yep.
And you go, I just knew, and I was trying to block it. And that's where that innate relationship with yourself and that trusting your soul and that message that comes through is like, okay, I knew.
Like protecting yourself almost.
Yeah, you always want hope for the best.
Yeah.
And sometimes your soul is telling you something different. Right?
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, that day, one of the rules that Maddie had set was that for us to call in our baby, and this language might not resonate with people, but for us to start to try to conceive, that we would need to be living on our own, because up until the year before we'd been living with my brother-in-law and, you know, married for a while, and it was time for us to have our own space. And so we were just settled into our new home, like literally that month. And then we had a friend move in with us that weekend. So, you know, everything was kind of on the right trajectory. And then baby's like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
You said you're going to live on your own, and now there's somebody else in your house in my room.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's just like a side thing. That afternoon, Maddie and I took the dog for a walk, and this is so that I did the pregnancy test the Saturday afternoon. The Sunday morning got the stronger line. Sunday afternoon, or Sunday was when the friend moved in. Sunday afternoon, Maddie and I took the dog for a walk, and we were not paying attention to our first baby. She was running off lead in this massive park and managed to get through a hole in the fence and disappeared.
Oh, no.
And so the two of us went into full panic mode. So my body's in like full stress response, and I could feel things are not feeling good, like just super agitated and like trying to breathe and trying to stay calm. And I'm like, where's my baby? Like my first baby, she's disappeared, and we're running around calling her.
The first baby's a dog, by the way.
Yeah, the dog, the fur baby.
Beautiful Prim.
Yes, and we got her back, but I just didn't feel good in my body at that point. And I was like, then the fear was like, oh my God, what if I push myself to, you know, lose the new baby that's in my womb?
So even you had that thought.
Had that thought, yeah.
Interesting.
So really not very positive, considering what usually a positive person I am. So a lot of that soul connection stuff may be coming back in. And so I thought, okay, well, just, you know, go to bed. Got up the next day, went and taught my yoga class, came home and just, I felt kind of really excited, like, oh, I'm pregnant, you know, like all this kind of good feeling going through my body. I did another pregnancy test, but I did a digital one.
Okay.
And it said not pregnant. I thought, well, maybe it's just too early.
Okay.
Because sometimes the digital ones, they need to
be a bit further on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I didn't get too attached to it. I was like, I'll make an appointment with the doctor. We'll go get an actual blood test done this week. Had a nutrition client late that night at home, and then after that had dinner with Maddie and our friend that had moved in, and then I started to get period pains, and I just knew, but I didn't want to believe it. So I went to the bathroom, and then there was a lot of blood and a lot of pain, and I don't know. I guess you would consider it a chemical pregnancy, but
Because how many days after your period was
so this
that?
was 3 days.
Yeah, okay.
But the pain was intense,
Yeah.
and I don't know whether that was because the pain in my heart was so full because I had wanted to be a mum for so long, and it was kind of there, but then
Taken away.
Yeah. And it all happened so fast. And yeah, I feel like I did kind of process it pretty quickly in terms of it happened. I was writhing around in pain all night, and I just experienced all of that on my own because I let Maddie sleep. Like I knew he had to be up early the next day. And I didn't really know who to contact or what to do because it had happened so quickly and it was all just so full on, and I didn't know that like you do research with Dr. Google and you don't really get any answers.
What's happening?
Yeah.
Am I losing my baby?
So I called like Healthline.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And yeah, they were pretty helpful, but they just said you need to speak to your doctor. And then I spoke to my mum and I told her what had happened, and she's like, you should probably go to the doctor. So at least then we could find out what was going on. So they organised 2 blood tests for me, one to see what my HCG was doing, and then one for a few days later to see whether it was going up or down, because they say, sometimes you can have an early bleed and it doesn't mean anything, like it's still okay.
Yeah.
So to try not to get too attached to that before you get your blood test done. But I mean, we already knew.
You just know, don't you? And that was when Gary was like, maybe it's not. I'm like, I know it is. And
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. So it's, it's if you're listening to this and you do have a bleed during pregnancy, I'll get onto that in a second. Don't get too attached to it, because still go and see the doctor and figure out. Like it's always important to get checked out, because sometimes it's nothing. But so I got the first one done and my HCG levels were a little high, but I didn't even need to get the second one done because it was obvious I was no longer pregnant. And so we ended up telling a fair few people at that point, because I'm the sort of person that I process through conversation and sharing the story. And also I think it helped, I mean, he'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it helped Maddie to be more ready. Like it did happen quite quickly. And one of the comments he said to me was like, oh, we didn't get as like many months to practice as we wanted to. And so then, I was trying to see like the fun and the silver lining in it, like, oh, we get to go again kind of thing.
So how did you process the emotional side of that though? Like, do you feel like you did that in a really healthy way?
I wrote some letters to myself, to the baby. And as I said before, I believe that this baby that we're now about to have is the same soul. It just knew that it wasn't the right time to come in as that physical body. So in terms of my own processing, I definitely did a few releases, like write a letter, burn it, or because there was nothing physical for me to say goodbye to. So it was very much experiential, and I'm big into kinesiology and Reiki and all those sorts of practices. So I saw some of my practitioners and I used their support to help me clear the fear that I was obviously experiencing and to see the positives. And I think that I got through that pretty quick. So
yeah, beautiful.
I think it was just that week that, I felt the pain on the Monday night. And I told a few of my close friends and family, and just being able to talk about the emotion and talk about what you're going through and then move on from it. So giving yourself new focus, being able to prioritize what's actually important right now. I found that kind of useful. So it was like, okay, we are looking to bring in a baby, but we don't get to choose that. No. We just have to let that happen.
It's so out of our hands. Yeah, it's releasing the control, right?
Releasing the control.
It's so hard for us women.
Yeah, and I think that is part of the lesson, right, of becoming a mum. Surrender is one of those key words, because you are about to lose control of, not full control, but
your life is about to change.
Your life changes, and if you're not ready for that, then maybe you're not ready to have a baby.
Yeah.
So learning, the lesson in surrender, and then patience has been a massive one for me through my entire life, but I didn't really heed the warning signs. until after that miscarriage, I was like, okay, chill the fuck out.
Yeah.
Obviously, the silver lining we took away from that scenario was that even though we'd been having unprotected sex for 5 years and not had a successful pregnancy, we now knew that we were compatible. That was our takeaway.
Yeah.
We can get pregnant. And it wasn't, there was something wrong with that DNA. There was something wrong with that physical life form. It wasn't the right time. And that is what we chose to take away from that experience. And I mean, I encourage people that I speak to see it from a similar perspective, but you can't put your own beliefs onto other people. So I think that's kind of one of the hardest things, you know, when other people share that they've gone through a similar thing, but they're still, like you said, holding on to that pain for so long. And yeah, I think I actually experienced a little more of the sadness later on.
Yeah, okay.
Because I hadn't had a chance to tell anyone until after we'd already said goodbye to that scenario. So kind of went on about my life, but then I would get the random tears every now and then. I go, oh, okay, I still haven't quite fully processed this. Maybe there is some more work that I need to do here. I actually feel like there were some other things that needed to come into alignment in my life that I wasn't paying attention to. So I had a friend who did tarot, and she was giving me some guidance around some things that needed to change in my life, and I was so resistant. For example, and people are going to think that I'm really crazy for this, but
do it.
You need to stop coaching CrossFit was the message that came through the tarot cards. And I was like, what? Nah. I've been doing this for 10 years. There's no reason for me to stop coaching CrossFit. You know, I love the gym I'm working in.
It's part of who I am.
It's part of who I am. It's part of my identity. You know I need to back off training because I've had adrenal fatigue and a bunch of health stuff go on, but I can still make it work. And just really resistant to that message. And, you know, like, it was I said, well, how long? When am I meant to do this? And this was in December that she was doing this reading just before Christmas. She's like, 2 days. I'm like, fuck off.
Like, give it up in 2 days. Just stop.
Just stop. And I'm like,
stop now.
Well, I have integrity, so I'm not going to do that to my boss. You know, she's going on holiday in January, so I want to make sure that I'm supporting her while she's on holiday and honouring that. So, no, I'm not going to quit in 2 days' time.
Yeah.
But it did make me go, all right, well, I need to question. There's no reason for me to quit. Like, I enjoy working there. I love the members. I do love the training, but I had been training pretty intensely when I had the miscarriage or the chemical pregnancy, whatever you want to call it. And so I did have to reflect and go, okay, am I still pushing too hard? Is my body in a sympathetic state in its stress response that's not allowing a safe space and a safe time for Bub to come in? So I honoured it just to see where it would go. You know, even if I took a couple of months off, it wasn't going to be that big a deal.
Yeah.
But then it did feel right. So I let my boss know before Christmas that I was going to be finishing up the CrossFit stuff. I kept going with the yoga stuff, but finish up with the CrossFit stuff when she was getting back from her holiday. So I'd do what I'd agreed to do. And in that month was when we conceived this baby.
See, trusting and listening.
Listening
to the messages,
there,
right?
you know, and at the time I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, why should I need to change my job or anything like that? But I was so sick through my first trimester, I wouldn't have actually been able to coach CrossFit. So it does all happen for a reason. There is a divine plan, whether you guys like it or not.
Yeah.
There is some free will there, but a lot of it can also be decided by something bigger than us.
Yeah.
We are just a small, minute little thing, and it doesn't have to be God sitting up on a cloud. Or I mean, we could go down this whole religious route as well. But you know, it's just there's something bigger than us.
Absolutely.
We are something so small in this whole big thing, and when we make ourselves the sunshine, when we make ourselves the focus, that's when we stay in that victim mindset.
Yes, absolutely. And I wanted to just touch on, like, we were saying something about just like the thoughts and stuff. And I think that a lot of people believe what they think and can get stuck in that. And, you know, when I moved through the process of the miscarriage and stuff, I don't stop thinking about it. I've never stopped thinking about it. Like, it comes into your mind, but it's allowing it to be there, welcoming it rather than going against it. And it's the same with like the messages that come through from divine or whatever, or source or universe, is that learning to really just listen and welcome whatever's coming through. And I think that's a big thing with pain, is that so many people are really afraid to drop into pain and experience their pain. But what happens when we actually welcome it and allow it to be, it goes. It moves so much faster than if we're like, nope, I don't want to feel like this, go away. I don't have time for this. Like, I just want this to go away.
Yeah.
Then it holds on.
Yeah.
And it's the thoughts, right? You have the thoughts. I'm like, the same day I found out I was having the miscarriage, friends of mine posted about being pregnant. And that was like a stab in my heart, right? And
Which a lot of people listening to this might be able to resonate with.
yeah. And it was just like, and I messaged them and I reached out and I said, guys, I'm so, so, so happy for you. And it's broken my heart even more, but thank you for sharing. And he was just like, sending you so much love. Like, we love you guys. I'm like, thank you. But, you know, and then after the process and after I'd had the closure, I would still think about, oh, that's right, the miscarriage. And rather than going, stop, I don't want to think about that. It was like, oh, yeah, welcome. Oh, yeah, there's a hint of sadness there.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Welcome.
A memory.
Yeah. You get to be here. You get to be a part of me because I'm a whole being. And that includes experiencing sadness and frustration and anger and all of those emotions.
Yeah.
But it's about allowing yourself to process and move through them in a really healthy way, as opposed to holding on to them and trying to resist them and make them go away.
Definitely.
So if you are like, if you've gone through an experience maybe similar to what Stacey and I are talking about now, and you're noticing that the thoughts come up and they drop you back into that really deep, dark place, then I invite you to maybe try just going, when you have a thought, just go, okay, welcome. Okay, beautiful. What does this make me feel? How am I feeling with this thought? Okay, it makes me feel sad. Beautiful. I'm going to allow myself to feel sad. I feel sad right now.
Yeah.
And I'm going to cry and do whatever, and then watch it move, because it just happens so automatically. Hey.
Really. And tears are so healing.
So healing.
People think that they're weak because they're crying and they have to hide it. But really, tears are a part of that healing process. So a lot of tears for me around that processing time. That was really important.
Sorry, something just dropped in. Sorry to cut you
Yeah,
off.
go.
But it was like, I think a lot of people too think that they have to be upset and sad for longer than they are. And this is what we were talking about the other day, and I think that's what actually triggered us wanting to have the conversation, was that you don't have to suffer. You don't have to choose that because you think you have to, or that's what's expected of you.
Yeah.
I had people reaching out to me weeks after going, how are you going? I'm like,
I'm good.
I'm actually really good.
Yep.
Thanks for asking,
Yep.
but I feel really good.
Yep.
And they're like, oh, wow. And I'm like, yeah.
And
I'm
they're
allowed to
almost
do
more
that.
sad for you.
Yes.
Because they're holding on to the suffering because they think that they need to sit in that sadness for too long.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you don't have to, and there's nothing wrong if you choose to process it really quickly and then go back to feeling joy.
Yes.
You get to do that. That's what life is about, right?
Yeah.
Experiencing all of the emotions, but not like keeping yourself stuck in pain and suffering
Yeah.
for longer than you have to, because that's what society expects
Yes.
of you,
Yes.
right? Like,
And because for so long, miscarriage has been thought of this thing that you've done something wrong. Like if you have a miscarriage, it's because you have done something wrong.
yeah.
Which is not true at all. And that's why people don't really talk about it. So and this is completely my opinion, and everybody is open to do whatever they want, but I actually love it when people tell their friends and family that they're pregnant before
Yes.
the 12 or 13 week scan. We didn't publicly announce it until we got our scan. But we were telling a lot of our friends and family in our small world that we were in, that we were pregnant, because you want to experience that joy with everybody. You want to make it real, and you should make it real, because when you hide it and pretend like nothing's happening, how much more likely are you to bring in something bad because you're pretending that it's not real?
And also to have the support if, something did go wrong.
Yeah.
It was like I had told my closest friends. I hadn't publicly shared on Facebook, obviously, on socials, which is, apparently what we have to do these days. But, I'd told my parents and my sisters and everything. And I'm so glad I did, because then they could actually really support me through it and hold that space for me. And it was really beautiful.
And that's when you know that you've got a good, supportive, loving family, because they're there to celebrate your highs and then they support you through the lows. And one of my family members, when I told them, actually, this kind of hurts me a little bit, but they said, don't tell the rest of the family yet, wait, because in case you have another miscarriage.
Yeah.
And I was like,
No.
no. And I probably didn't say this to them, but in my head, I'm like, fuck you.
Yeah.
It's my news to share. And I feel really positive because I'm not going to relive that fear. I'm not going to let a previous experience
impact the way that I
cloud.
would normally have
Yes.
dealt or processed
Yes.
this or shared this.
Yes. So, I told some of my family like very early on. And even when I was given that warning, I still went ahead and told some of my other family because I felt comfortable sharing it. And if I feel comfortable, it's my news.
Yeah.
And if it hurts other people, I'm sorry it hurts you, but are you choosing to suffer unnecessarily? Because it's not actually your
It's not
pain
yours,
to bear.
Exactly. You can feel sad for me and I appreciate that, but
Don't embody that.
don't hold it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not yours to hold.
Yeah. So I guess the main reason that we've shared our stories is because we want to bring the conversation out of the underground.
Yes. Open it up.
We want more people to talk about it. We want more people to let go of their suffering, of their pain, whether it's around like miscarriage or fear of getting pregnant or anything. Like it doesn't even need to be in this realm, but this is just one example of where suffering, we could do a whole nother podcast on death and how people have a fear of death. It's going to happen to all of us.
Yeah.
So, there's
inevitable.
some healing that can happen there too. Start to explore maybe more deeply why you've got the fear, where it's come from and how you can process and move through it.
Yeah.
So you're not continuing to carry it.
Yeah. And if you have experienced something a couple of months ago and you're still hurting and this may trigger you and that's okay, please reach out and have a chat to me. I'm open to talking about it. But if you are still hurting and you're still experiencing suffering from that, you're choosing that.
Yep.
You are choosing that. And I know, and look, that triggered the fuck out of me when I first heard it. I'm like, what do you mean I'm choosing that? Why would I choose that? But it was true.
Yeah.
You choose all of your prolonged suffering. And the beauty in that is that when you gain that awareness, you get to make changes.
Yes.
You get to choose something different.
Totally. At that point, it's probably an unconscious suffering.
Absolutely.
But once you have the awareness that you don't have to feel that way, you can make a conscious decision.
That is your responsibility.
To change it.
Yeah. And that's from love. That is from so much love.
Yes.
And through personal experience and being deeply, deeply depressed for a lot of my life. And, and knowing that there is a different way and a better way. And my intention is always love and supporting others to move through that shit because it's fucked. We are here to live abundant, full, joyful lives. That's our birthright.
Yes.
Yet so many people don't know how or have been tricked into believing that it has to be a certain way, that you have to suffer in order to live. And it's not. You get to thrive. You don't just have to survive, you get to thrive.
Absolutely thrive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, Nikki. And one final thing I want to share is there was a lady who didn't want to celebrate her birthday, and she's probably in her 70s. She comes to one of my yoga classes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
More reason to celebrate.
I know. And I was like, no, you definitely need to celebrate this. You're an amazing human being. And she goes, what's amazing about me? And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's sad. Like in my head, I'm like, that's very sad that she doesn't love herself enough to know that she's an amazing human being. And I said, you are amazing. Every single one of the beings on this planet is amazing because we are here. There is a reason we are here. We got to come into this world. So celebrate that life. You are a gift. You are a miracle.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's like a 1 in a million chance of conception every single time a baby is created because there's a million sperm.
Oh my God. Have you actually ever looked into, listeners, seriously, go and look into what it takes to actually conceive.
Yeah.
To actually get you not only to conceive, but to survive a pregnancy and then to survive birth and to be still alive.
Yeah. It's a fucking miracle.
You'll wake up and you'll be like, holy fuck, I am a miracle.
Yes, celebrate yourself. Celebrate your life because there's a reason you're here. Mm-hmm. Don't waste that.
Yeah.
Don't waste that.
Yes, beautiful.
So hopefully you guys got something out of that. We went pretty deep. I know the spiritual stuff doesn't resonate with everybody. And to be honest with you, and maybe even for Nikki, it wasn't me 10 years ago. I would have been like, what are you even talking about? Yeah. So just take the parts that make sense for you and then be open to the other stuff because it might plant a seed for you to develop a deeper connection with yourself and the world around you.
Yeah, beautiful. I love you.
No, I love you too. Where can people find you, Nikki, if they want to reach out to you on socials or email you?
Yeah, beautiful. So you can find me on Instagram. I'm at Nikki, Nikii Syme. And same on Facebook.
Cool.
Yeah.
And they're probably the best places, and then they
Yeah,
can find
they're-
your website from there.
Yeah, or nikkisyme.com. And but it's the Nikki that can get people a bit stuck. It's the NIKII and then SYME.
Yeah.
I like to be different.
Yeah.
I'm unique.
Unique. We are all unique
We are all
snowflakes.
unique, exactly.
Well,
All right,
thank
Mila.
you, listeners. Feel free to point people in the direction of
please
this podcast.
share if it resonates. I think it's a really important one to get out there and get in people's ears because it has the power to change a lot of people's lives.
Yeah, and believe your baby is coming to you. You know, even if you've been trying for a while, set the intentions.
Yeah.
Do
It's
the
all
work.
perfect.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We love you.
We love you. Thank you.
Thanks, babe.
Bye.
Bye.
Visit thechieflife.com for all of your nutrition coaching needs, your own personalized meal plan, as well as how you can get involved with one of our 7 pillar retreats.